Hi, everyone. This is Joe Lagilia, and on today's episode of Not Your Average Joe, we're talking with Christy Lister of Blue Help. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Not Your Average Joe, powered by Mortgage Message. I'm here with my friend Christy Lister of Blue Help. Christy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We've been industry friends for a very long time.
Yes.
And I'm so excited because you are a guest that was actually brought to us from another guest of ours. So shout out to our friend Joette.
Yes, my dear friend. She's
Absolutely.
fantastic.
And I was sharing with you before we started the interview how this story really has moved me once I started learning more about it. And to our audience, it was something that we had to share. So if you can, just to start the interview, tell everybody, what is Blue Help? How did it begin? And what's it all about?
Sure. So Blue Help is actually a non-for-profit that helps families of police officers that died by suicide.
Okay.
It helps the officers, departments, the family, gives them resources, education, whatever is in need for families. And it started back in 2016. The president, her husband's a police officer, but not, he's still alive, and she's never dealt with suicide, but it was a passion for her. So unfortunately, or fortunately, we can learn from the experience we're going to talk about here. But unfortunately, on June 17th, 2019, the chief came to my door. He actually texted me, and I looked at my phone and I'm like, oh, what is he doing? And then I knew. But so Ken unfortunately died by suicide 2019. It'll be 2 years on the 17th this year. And there's a liaison for Blue Help from the Joliet Police Department, actually, Dwayne English. He reached out to the department, to Downers Grove, and asked if he could contact me. So since then, I've been advocating and looking and trying to find ways to help change. They have a website, so you can go to bluehelp.org/Illinois, because Illinois, we have an Illinois chapter now. So we started this in January. I worked really hard to say, hey, we need people in the states that we are in. And I kind of got them to do it.
And I was just going to mention, my understanding is that through this experience, you decided that you wanted to champion the Illinois chapter as a state representative.
Absolutely. Because it's important to know you're not alone.
Right.
And these families, what I tell the police departments, so I've been speaking at police departments, and what I tell them is the badge that you put on every day, you try to protect the other side of the badge, being your family. And you take the dings on the front side of the badge every day that you put your vest on and strap your gun on and go to work. The problem is you don't realize that you actually are denting the backside as well. And you think you're protecting your family, but what you're doing is shutting them out, thinking you're protecting them, shutting down yourself, and then it ultimately rolls into taking your life, struggling. We all struggle, right? We all have depression periodically. We all have life struggles, seasons in life, but it's being able to talk about it and having somebody to talk to and know that it's okay, that even though you have a job that's to protect people, that it's okay to not be okay sometimes.
I think it's an incredible perspective, and one that is why you're here to highlight.
Yes.
Talk to the audience, if you can, about the real statistics behind what this cause is trying to help.
So statistically, when an officer dies by suicide, it is not considered a line of duty death.
Wow. So
they don't get those benefits that if you were to die while on the job, they don't get the same benefits. Their families do not get the same benefits, unfortunately. So it's important to know and to fight for changing policy, one, to help make sure that they get their mental health needs, because you see things, you go to debriefings, but then where's the follow-up? There's not a lot of follow-up. And it's important to make sure that their families are taken care of. And he dealt with a ton. He was a sniper. He went on calls that, potentially if you're having a bad day or something's going on in your family life, it could be a trigger for you. We all have triggers, different, like, why did I just react that way? Are you stressed? Are you tired? Are you depressed? Things happen, and it can just change you and make it very difficult to believe that you still are strong, even though you're hurting.
Yeah. Christy, so much of what I know about you is just an incredible mother.
Thank you.
And I want to ask you the family's role through this Blue Help organization. How does Blue Help assist in the families during this incredible moment in their life?
The amazing thing is once we find out that there is a death, we try and get the family's information. We hope that the family will reach out and give us their information. And then we provide, there's this honor box. And I was going to bring it, but I didn't really have a great way to present it. And the honor box goes to the family. And there is a blanket that has the EOW, which is end of watch. So normally on good times, the end of watch is retirement, right? But on times like this, the end of watch is the day that they've passed. So we have a blanket that ironically came on my daughter's 16th birthday this year.
Wow.
Was delivered the same day, and it was just completely out of blue. I said that's him saying I'm here for you. But a blanket and some books for younger kids to help deal with grief, and a candle and some things for the widow or widower, just to kind of let them know we're there. And for the police officers, departments, there are honor boxes that have little tchotchke things in there, and flyers, like one of her flyers, and challenge coins, things like that can help assist and let them know. I actually went and delivered to a police department, a retired officer. So just because you are no longer serving does not mean the job leaves you. It just means that you now don't know what to do with your time. And a lot of times officers, after they retire, within a few years, will take their lives as well, will die by suicide, unfortunately. So it was this case for this one, and I brought the box. I put together something, brought donuts, and went and hand delivered it, because I think it's important to know, you always hear, even much in our business, right? You hear people are there, it's just a phone call away, but how about just a face away? How about just a, conversation away that you can have, and it will make a difference.
Yeah. You bring up just an incredible perspective on how suicide by law enforcement and first responders is approached by a department level, not being considered to be something that they recognize as on the job. You also mentioned just a great perspective of after a retiree is bringing a whole new lifestyle and change, and how that can affect the mental health and well-being. Talk to me about some of the other legislation or some of the initiatives that are trying to be pushed through Blue Help that, as you said, can help change policy of where it sits for so long.
Well, recording now deaths by suicide has been a huge one. They pushed through where now the federal government is keeping track of that. So before, it wasn't there, and it was just kind of pushed under the rug and not talked about. Now people are talking about it, and they see the need for it. So there's that, making mental health change. Illinois has a bill going through, I think it's a 163, that's really trying to basically defunk the police departments, making them, if there's if they're on a call that force had to be used, they automatically have the anonymity, I can't say the word, sorry, until they know, until the investigation done, if it was a good call for what they did. They're trying to take that away. That's making these men and women afraid to do their job, because what if they have to pull their gun out? What if they have to take somebody down? They're afraid to, because they may end up in jail. And I always tell people, and I think this is the huge important thing, there are bad cops out there, just like there are bad mortgage people, just like there are bad,
Absolutely.
Everything. They do not define the police. Those are few and far between. But what happens is those often take over, and then it views everybody the same. But officers that are struggling, they may just break one day, and something bad may happen because they just broke. Yeah. And then it looks bad. I suggest, and I tell the chiefs when I go and talk to them, that I would like to see quarterly mental health check-ins with a counselor, not on site. They don't have to see them there, but they have to know that they are going, because every 3 months is, for 25 years of my life, and it didn't dawn on me till he passed, every 3 months it was kind of like a roller coaster. There would be good and then bad, and good and bad, and it didn't dawn on me that that's probably because you build everything up, and for him and a lot of them every 3 months it's like, oh, and it happens.
So Christy, tell me if you can some real numbers behind why Blue Help is so important for people to understand.
Absolutely. So obviously we started in 2016. Statistically, we are now only getting the officer's death end of watch when people report it. So not everybody reports it, so numbers really are going to be skewed probably forever. But it gives us an idea of how many officers, how many states are actually struggling with the mental health. And this year alone, 60 officers have already died by suicide, 3 of which that have been in Illinois, unfortunately. 20 states have been affected by it. And 2019, there were 238. Ken was only 129 at that time, and it rolled out at 238. And until we get people contacting us and letting us know, they don't have to provide information. They just have to say, this officer passed, so that we can add that. Because the only way to make it a line of duty death is to keep reporting it. And reporting it means contacting us. And you can go on our website and do that. Statistically, 506 of the officers have been Caucasian. The majority of them are male. So I don't know why. I keep trying to figure that out. I don't know if women just talk more, handle things differently, aren't afraid to open up. And I think it's important for families of officers and officers themselves to have friends outside first responders. Any type of first responder, have it outside of first responders, because that can save you. Because you can talk to somebody and have a normal conversation and not have to, put a front on. And so those are important things that come into play. And I do also, want to let you know that not only is it bluehelp.org, but we've started keeping track of firemen and EMS and dispatchers, because they are all first responders that are all affected by the same call that officer has gone on. So those are all starting. You'll see those come out on Facebook. I'm the Blue Help part. Hopefully maybe somebody will pick up the Red Help part, the dispatcher part, which is I think Yellow Help. So hopefully those numbers and those will start coming around here as well.
Christy, I'm so inspired by this story. I know our audience is too, and I think what is one of the most fascinating components of it is where I meet an individual like you that goes through an experience like this and finds the strength in that moment to think of others. Where does that inspiration come from for you?
To do for others?
To do for others, to immediately think, how can I take this event and look in a way to improve the world based off what I went through?
I don't know. I think it's just inbred in me. My grandparents, my mom, we would volunteer when I was a kid. And I think that's just kind of where it came from. And Ken knew that I would advocate. It drove him nuts. He knew that I would advocate. He hated that I would speak up. But he also knew that I would. He even told, we were divorced. And unfortunately, it happened at his girlfriend's house in her backyard. And she and I talk, we're friends. And we're sitting there one day, and she's like, it drove him nuts that you advocated, right? And I go, yeah. At least I did something right.
It's fantastic.
But
yes.
She also said he knew you would.
Yeah.
Because it's important to, and it's important to know that it affects everybody in your life. And whether it's a police suicide or any suicide, when you are working with somebody or friends with somebody or in a relationship, some type of relationship, knowing them, you don't recognize the signs. You kind of know they're there, but you don't recognize them as signs. And although I would address things with him periodically, I didn't realize the extent until it was too late. 2 weeks before he took his life, I had called him about a medical bill, and he was crying on the phone. And he's like, I'm so sorry, Christy, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, what's wrong? I'm here for you. I'm a shoulder. There's no judgment. Now, nobody really wants to hear that from their ex-wife or ex-spouse, right? But truly, there would be no judgment. And he hung up. And I honestly believe that was when he was going to do it. And taking that 5 minutes to call, de-escalated it. Ultimately, this is what was going to happen because he needed to realize he needed help. And he was put on administrative leave a year before. And some of the things that came out as I investigated everything going on, I realized I missed so many signs. We all miss signs,
Right.
Because you get really good at hiding. The one thing I will say about police officers, first responders in general, they are taught to separate emotion from the situation. And I can do it just as good as everybody else, any of them, and any of their families can. But you have to remember to bring it back together. And I think over time, a lot of times, if you bring it back together, that means you're going to have to actually think about it and feel it. And you don't want to feel it. It sucks to feel it. So they don't. And I know that was one of my biggest things with Ken. I would tell him, when you come home, hey, we're not somebody on the street. We're your family. Leave it at the door.
Right.
But he couldn't.
Right.
For whatever reason.
And I think the organization that you've partnered with, bringing this awareness, bringing this advocate to just this incredible reality. What are some of the goals that Blue Help, whether on a state or national level? What are some of the goals and initiatives that they're looking into the future to even bring more awareness to this?
Obviously, change statistics where nobody's doing it, but in reality, we know that that's not going to be the case. But having departments understand that the job does affect them, and find ways for the job to actually do something and be there. The old school way is rub it off, you'll get over it. And I say that to my kids too. If I don't see blood, I don't want to see it.
Right.
But the truth is, they have debriefings. They talk about mental health, but mental health is a scary thing, and because we don't understand it, because we've never allowed ourselves to truly understand it. And I liken it to diabetes. Diabetes is a health issue. So is mental health. Diabetes, you take your insulin every day. You can live a normal life. Mental health doesn't mean that you can't live a normal life. If you're struggling, just means that you maybe find a medicine that can help. You take it every day, and you can live a normal and happy life. And counseling. But statistically, they don't do that.
Right.
Because for years, so many years, if you were ever thought of as not, having a mental issue, you could lose your badge, you could lose your gun. In Illinois, if you are diagnosed with something, that's still the case.
Wow.
There are other states that you're not. If you're diagnosed, say hospitalized, say you have to be hospitalized for a couple weeks, that is then stated, you can lose your badge potentially. And we want to change that, obviously, because again, we all go through things.
So
and
great.
They see so many things. And I don't care what police department it is. Obviously, some police departments see more than others, but it affects you individually, and it affects your department and your family. And it destroys your family sometimes when you're not dealing with it.
Absolutely. Christy, whether it's someone who's watching this interview and resonates with this incredible mission that you've picked up and wants to be a part of it, for whatever reason they're connected to this, what is a way that they can get connected to Blue Help?
Well, they can go on to bluehelp.org/Illinois. You can even, I think, Google Blue Help Illinois, and it now leads you to it. And there's different things on that website. So it can give you want to volunteer. It has my Blue Help email. It has my phone number, and we can get connected. And I think it's important. Peer support groups are great. I think there needs to be family support groups as well to help before you get to this point. And it will give you the statistics on the wall. There's an honor wall. And what this honor wall does is honor people like Ken, officers that have, taken their lives, unfortunately died by suicide. And it puts a face and a name to the cause. Now, you will go on there and you will see that there are some blank faces because families or police departments are struggling to understand it and to honor it, sort of speak. And when I asked Karen, when I first reached out, I said, why are there no faces? She goes, it's really hard for people sometimes. I'm like, but you don't make change if you don't put a face to it. You have to talk about it, because change doesn't happen if you don't talk about it and if you don't put a face to it. It's easier to ignore it when it's just a shadow, a silhouette of an officer or silhouette of whatever it may be.
Yeah. Christy, you are a light in our industry. You are a light in this community. And you are a real community hero to me and to so many. But I must ask you the question, who is your hero?
Who is my hero? My kids. My kids. The strength that they show and how they overcame everything. You know, they're still struggling, of course, but I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for them. They are my blessing, they are my strength, and they are the true heroes of everything that's going on. I'm just the voice for them. I'm just trying to make it so somebody else's kids and somebody else's family doesn't have to go through what we've dealt with.
Christy, thank you for sharing your story. It is an honor to share it with my audience. And thank you to my audience for tuning in to another episode of Not Your Average Joe, powered by Mortgage Message. We'll see you next week, everyone. Take care.
Hi, I'm Christy Lister with Blue Help, and I was just a guest on Not Your Average Joe. And if you know of any true community heroes, let us know so that they can come on and share their story.